The rain was coming down in sheets as I drove home from another late night at the clinic. Being a veterinarian in Seattle meant long hours, especially during the fall when everyone's pets seemed determined to eat things they shouldn't. I was exhausted, but a part of me was also looking forward to seeing my wife, Isolde. We'd been married for 15 years, and though the spark wasn't always as bright as it used to be, there was a deep comfort in our routine, in knowing someone had your back. I pulled into the driveway of our craftsman-style house in Ballard, the one we'd painstakingly renovated together over the years. The lights were on, which was odd. Isolde usually went to bed early. As I unlocked the front door, I could hear music playing softly from the living room. It was one of our favorite jazz albums, something we hadn't listened to in ages. "Isolde," I called out, dropping my bag by the door. No answer. I walked into the living room, and the scene that greeted me felt like a punch to the gut. Isolde was on the couch, wrapped in the arms of a man who was definitely not me. It was Griffith, our next-door neighbor, the one who always seemed a little too eager to help Isolde with yard work. They were kissing deeply, passionately, oblivious to everything else. The jazz music, which had moments ago felt comforting, now seemed like a cruel soundtrack to my nightmare. I stood there frozen, unable to speak or move. It was Isolde who noticed me first. Her eyes widened in horror and she pushed Griffith away. "Bastian, I can explain," she stammered, her face flushed. Griffith, the coward, just looked down, avoiding my gaze. I finally found my voice, though it was barely a whisper. "Explain. Explain what, Isolde? Explain why my wife is making out with our neighbor on our couch." She started to cry, the crocodile tears I would soon come to know so well. "Just happened," she said, her voice cracking. "We were talking and talking. Is that what you call it?" I was starting to feel a rage building inside me, a cold, burning fury that threatened to consume me. "Bastian, please let me explain," she begged, reaching for my hand. I recoiled as if she'd burned me. "I don't want to hear it, Isolde. Just get out, both of you, get out of my house." Griffith scrambled to his feet, mumbled an apology, and practically ran out the door. Isolde stayed, her eyes pleading. "Bastian, don't do this. We can work through this. Work through this. You think we can just work through you cheating on me with our neighbor, after 15 years? Get out, Isolde, I mean it." She finally left, sobbing, leaving me alone in the living room, the jazz music still playing its cruel serenade. I turned it off. The silence that followed was deafening. The next few days were a blur. I barely slept, barely ate. I called my best friend Ansel and told him what had happened. He was furious on my behalf, offering to have a word with Griffith, but I told him to stay out of it. This was my mess to deal with. I hired a lawyer and the divorce proceedings began. Isolde tried to contact me to apologize, to explain, but I refused to speak to her. I couldn't bear to hear her voice, to see her face. The betrayal was too deep, too raw. As the divorce moved forward, I started to uncover more about Isolde and Griffith's affair. It hadn't just been a one-time thing. They'd been seeing each other for months, sneaking around behind my back. I found text messages on her old phone, ones she'd clearly forgotten to delete. They were explicit, loving, and utterly devastating. I felt like my entire life had been a lie. Everything I thought I knew about Isolde, about our marriage, was shattered. I started to question everything, to wonder if she'd ever really loved me. One evening, a few weeks after I'd filed for divorce, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. "Hello," I said, my voice hoarse. "Bastian, it's Griffith's wife, Aurelia," the voice on the other end said. "I need to talk to you. Aurelia and I met at a coffee shop downtown." She was a petite woman with kind eyes, and she looked as exhausted as I felt. She told me that she'd suspected something was going on between Isolde and Griffith for a while, but she hadn't been able to prove it. She'd hired a private investigator, and the investigator had given her the evidence she needed to confront Griffith. "I'm so sorry, Bastian," Aurelia said, her voice trembling. "I had no idea it was your wife." "If I had, it's not your fault, Aurelia," I said, offering her a weak smile. "We were both betrayed." Aurelia and I started talking regularly after that. We shared our stories, our pain, our anger. We found solace in each other's company, in knowing that we weren't alone in our suffering. One day, Aurelia told me something that made my blood run cold. She said that Griffith had been bragging to his friends about how he'd upgraded to Isolde, how she was rich, and he was going to live the good life. That's when I realized that this wasn't just about love or lust. It was about money. Isolde had inherited a considerable sum from her parents a few years ago, and Griffith was after it. I decided I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I started digging into Griffith's finances, and what I found was shocking. He was deeply in debt, owing money to some very unsavory people. He'd been desperate for a way out, and Isolde's money was his ticket. I took the evidence to the police, and they launched an investigation. It turned out that Griffith had been involved in some shady dealings for years, using his landscaping business as a front for money laundering. He was arrested, and Isolde was implicated as well. She claimed she had no idea what Griffith was doing, but the police didn't believe her. She was charged with conspiracy to commit fraud. The divorce was finalized, and Isolde got nothing. Her reputation was ruined, her money was gone, and she was facing a prison sentence. I felt a sense of satisfaction, knowing that they had both been brought to justice. But it didn't bring me happiness. The pain of Isolde's betrayal was still there, a deep, aching wound that I knew would take a long time to heal. Aurelia and I continued to support each other. We started spending more time together, going for walks, having dinner, talking for hours. We found comfort in each other's company, a sense of peace that I hadn't felt in a long time. One evening, as we were sitting on my porch watching the sunset, Aurelia turned to me and said, "Bastian, I know it's soon, but I think I'm falling in love with you." I looked at her, her eyes shining in the fading light, and I realized that I was falling in love with her too. "I think I'm falling in love with you too, Aurelia," I said, reaching for her hand. We kissed, a gentle, tentative kiss that felt like a new beginning. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. We both had scars from our pasts, wounds that would take time to heal. But we had each other, and that was enough. I learned a valuable lesson from Isolde's betrayal. I learned that love isn't always enough, that some people are capable of great cruelty, and that sometimes the people you trust the most are the ones who will hurt you the deepest. But I also learned that it's possible to find love again, even after the most devastating betrayal. And that sometimes the best revenge is simply moving on and finding happiness. Life is unpredictable, and love can be both a blessing and a curse. But in the end, it's the connections we make, the people we choose to surround ourselves with, that truly matter. And I was grateful to have found someone like Aurelia, someone who understood my pain and was willing to walk with me towards a brighter future.